Everything is changing day by day, but not in the way you see on the news, rather on the familiar shelves where you shop every week. In 2026, many of the most economical-sized products at Walmart are quietly being discontinued, forcing shoppers to switch to smaller options at higher cost, even though daily habits have not changed. What is notable is that this change does not arrive with big announcements or obvious shortages. It unfolds quietly in the supply chain, in shelf arrangement, and in the retailer's profit strategy. And by the time most people notice, the new price level has already become normal. Today's list includes 12 familiar products disappearing in exactly this way. Some are used by millions of families every morning. Some, when you hear the name, will make you want to check immediately how much you still have in your kitchen. This video is not meant to create anxiety. It simply helps you see one step earlier, before those quiet changes reach directly into your family's cost of living. Life is not taken away in a single day. It is only reduced little by little, until you no longer realize what you are paying for. 12. Bounty paper towels, kitchen roll, large pack of 12 rolls or more. In recent years, many people have shared the same feeling when walking through a supermarket. Shelves are still full. There are no shortage signs. Yet life is clearly more expensive. Not because you shop less intelligently, but because the easiest version of daily living is slowly being removed. Paper towels are just a small example, but a very real one. Bounty is not disappearing. Walmart still sells it. What is disappearing are the large packs of 12 rolls or more. The kind that once allowed ordinary people not to think too much about very simple tasks like wiping the kitchen or cleaning the table. A 12-roll pack used to cost about $24, roughly $2 per roll. Not luxurious, just enough to make life a little easier. When the large pack disappears, you are forced to buy smaller packs. The price per roll rises significantly, not because the paper is better, and not because of raw material shortages, but because convenience now has to generate more profit. You still wipe the kitchen the same way, still live the same way. Only a few months later, when you look back at the receipts, do you realize you are paying more for a life? That is no better. This is how modern retail operates. Products that take up more space but deliver lower profit gradually leave the shelves, making room for smaller packs, higher prices, and faster turnover. There is no paper crisis, no shortage. Only the affordable version of living is quietly disappearing. You do not need paper towels to survive. Many people once lived well using only cloth rags. But if you still choose modern convenience, the important thing to understand is this. Not everything is disappearing. Only the options that ordinary people can still afford are leaving first. One viewer said it very directly. I remember the time before paper towels, and everything was still fine. But if I still want to use them today, I have to pay more. Just because they cut the large pack. And that is exactly what is happening. Not loud, not announced, but touching every household. Have you noticed large packs slowly disappearing lately? Or is it just me paying attention? 11. Scott 1000 toilet paper, 1000 sheets per roll pack of 12 rolls. Scott 1000 is not soft, not luxurious, and it was never created to impress. It exists for a very simple reason: value. Each roll contains up to 1,000 sheets, lasting far longer than many standard rolls. Not because it is better, but because it was designed so you would not have to buy again so soon. Few people remember that Scott is a long-established paper brand in the United States. During World War II, when paper had to be conserved, production was adjusted around a clear philosophy. Thinner paper, longer use, just enough to serve the need. Scott 1000 was born from that logic of extending usage time. But that same logic feels out of place in modern retail. The longer a roll lasts, the slower the customer returns, and slower turnover means lower profit. On the same shelf space, Scott 1000 struggles to compete with softer, thicker papers that must be repurchased more often. Not because it is worse, but because it does not generate profit quickly enough. In recent years, Scott 1000 has gradually been given less display space or pushed into less visible positions. A familiar sign before a product leaves the shelf. No big announcement, no shortage, just a shift in priority. In simple terms, one roll of Scott 1000 can equal 3 to 4 regular rolls. When it disappears, people do not use less paper. They simply buy again sooner, more frequently, and pay more over time. This is not about personal preference. Some dislike rough paper, some avoid single ply. What stands out is this: a product created for savings and durability is slowly being removed because it does not fit the system's pace of turnover. In modern retail, fast-moving products often defeat long-lasting ones. Life does not collapse when Scott 1000 disappears. It simply becomes more expensive in a quiet way. One that many people only notice years later when looking back at receipts and wondering when everything began to change. Life rarely becomes harder in a single day. It only becomes quietly more expensive until you no longer remember when things once felt easy. 10 Downy dryer sheets, large box of 240 sheets. There are things in a home that do not keep you alive, but make you feel that life is still okay. Dryer sheets are one of them. They do not clean better. They do not dry faster. But they create a familiar signal. Scent equals everything is finished. Downy is not really selling paper. Downy is selling a switch in your brain. When you open the dryer and smell that familiar scent, you believe the load is clean, fresh, correct, complete. And when that scent is missing, many people feel as if a step is missing, even though the clothes are just as clean. The system sells habit, not necessity. The problem is that the large box of 240 sheets makes this habit too cheap and too stable. One box can last a very long time, even close to a full year. And anything that lasts too long carries a kind of fault in modern retail. It does not bring you back to the shelf quickly enough. So what disappears is usually not Downy, but the most economical version of Downy. Smaller boxes appear on shelves more often. The price per sheet becomes higher. And because each difference is only a few dollars, almost no one reacts. You do not feel like prices increased. You simply feel yourself buying again sooner. The most uncomfortable part is that none of this makes life any better. Clothes remain the same. Only the cost of a habit is broken into smaller pieces to generate more profit. And you realize it only after a few months, when you look back at receipts and ask, why did nothing change? Yet money started disappearing faster. Does your home still use dryer sheets? Or did you stop long ago? 9. Tide Liquid Laundry Detergent Bottle, 150 ounces. Laundry detergent is one of the rare things most households never question. You do not wonder whether to wash clothes. You just wash. It is like turning on a light when it gets dark or opening the faucet when you need water. A routine standard that happens automatically, so any changes around it often pass unnoticed. In recent years, large Tide bottles such as the 150-ounce size have slowly disappeared from shelves, replaced by smaller bottles and Tide Pods. More convenient, more compact, more modern, but more expensive per load. What changes is not necessarily the listed price, but how you are charged. With a large bottle, the cost is spread across dozens of washes. When switching to smaller bottles or pods, the cost is divided into each individual use. Each load costs only a few cents more, but because washing repeats over many years, the total money increases without creating the feeling of a price hike. Convenience always has its own price. With laundry pods, that price is paying for each individual wash instead of for a long period of use. You are not washing more. You are simply paying more under a different unit, quietly and very hard to notice. Tide is not disappearing. Clothes are still clean. Everything looks the same. But as the large bottles slowly leave the shelves, the standard of doing laundry is being divided into smaller pieces to generate more profit. And many people realize this only very late, when they look back at spending after a few years and wonder where the money went. 8. Ziploc freezer bags, gallon-size box of 200 bags. Zip bags are one of those things few people think about until they need them. They are not food, not chemicals. They do not expire. You buy them, store them, and use them gradually. Because of that, they are often seen as a foundational household item, something that exists to keep daily life running smoothly without much thought. Zip bags do not expire. If kept in a dry place away from high heat, they can be used for many years. The 200 bag gallon box once existed for exactly that reason. Buy once, use for a long time, and avoid returning to the shelf frequently. But that very advantage makes it a problem in modern retail. In recent years, large-capacity Ziploc boxes, such as the 200-bag version, have gradually been removed from shelves or pushed into less visible positions. In their place are boxes of 40, 60, or 80 bags, more compact, easier to stack, and more expensive per bag. There is no shortage announcement, no empty shelves, only the most economical option quietly no longer there. Mathematically, this change is very clear but difficult to notice in each individual purchase. When buying a 200-bag box, the cost is spread across hundreds of uses. When forced to buy smaller boxes, you pay a few extra cents per bag. Each time is insignificant. But because zip bags are used for so many purposes, freezing food, portioning meals, storing small items, preparing meals, the total cost rises without creating the feeling of a price increase. This is the quietest kind of cost increase, because it is tied to very ordinary actions. You do not think when you take a zip bag, you simply take one. And because there is no moment of decision, there is no point at which you react. You are not using more bags than before. You are only forced to buy again sooner. Ziploc is not disappearing. Zip bags are still full on the shelves. Daily life does not change. But as the large boxes are gradually removed, what is really happening is that items designed to last are being divided into smaller units to turn over faster. The system does not need to raise prices. It only needs to reduce volume. And that is why this type of cost is so hard to detect. You do not feel more impulsive in your spending. You simply find yourself returning to the plastic aisle more often. Only when looking back at receipts after months or years do you realize the smallest things have added up to a number that is not small at all. Which item on this list frustrates you the most? Because it is something you are forced to buy. 7. Glad trash bags. Large box of 140 bags. Trash bags are one of the very few things no one feels happy buying, yet no one has the option not to buy. You can change brands. You can change sizes. But you cannot decide that this month you will not use trash bags. It is not a habit. It is a minimum condition for a household to function. That is why trash bags always sit in the blind spot of spending. You do not compare carefully. You do not calculate much. You simply take the familiar box, place it in the cart, and move on. And because of that, it becomes one of the easiest items to adjust without triggering any reaction. In recent years, large capacity trash bag boxes, such as the 140 bag version, have gradually disappeared from shelves or been pushed into less visible positions. Not because of a shortage of trash bags, not because of supply chain disruption. Trash bags are still plentiful, but the most economical option is no longer where it used to be. When the large box disappears, you do not throw away more trash. The amount of household waste does not suddenly increase. The only thing that changes is the purchase cycle. Instead of buying one box that lasts for many months, you must return to that aisle sooner. Each purchase difference is small, but because trash bags are something that cannot be delayed, the total cost rises steadily and is very hard to notice. This is not the kind of price increase that shocks. There is no announcement board, no sudden jump in numbers. You simply grow accustomed to buying smaller boxes more often. And because it is trash, something you want to deal with as quickly as possible, you do not spend time thinking about how you are being charged. What is striking is that trash bags do not deliver an experience. They are not softer, not cleaner. They do not make life better when you pay more. They perform exactly one function: holding what you do not want to see. And things like that, necessary but unnoticed, are where costs can rise without resistance. There is no trash bag crisis, no empty shelves. But as the large boxes gradually disappear, what is truly missing is not trash bags. It is the ability to buy a necessary item at a reasonable cost. And that is the kind of shortage many people only recognize in hindsight. Why the same daily routine now comes with a higher bill than before. 6. Clorox Bleach, large bottle, 121 ounces. Most things in a home serve convenience. Bleach is different. It sits between ordinary cleaning and the sense of safety when things are no longer normal. You may go weeks without thinking about it. But in days when water safety is questioned or illness spreads, a cheap bottle of bleach takes on a completely different meaning. In 2020, many disinfectant shelves were emptied within hours, and what caused panic was not high prices, but having nothing left to buy. Unlike zip bags or trash bags, bleach has an expiration period. Chlorine slowly degrades over time, meaning preparation is not about buying as much as possible, but about buying the right amount while it is still effective. For many years, the large 121-ounce bottle was the cheapest way to maintain that level of safety. Low cost per ounce, enough for both routine cleaning and emergency use. It quietly created a buffer most households did not even realize they had. When large bottles gradually disappear from the shelves, you do not use bleach more. The only thing that changes is the price of peace of mind. The smaller bottle is more compact but more expensive per ounce, and the amount of reserve at home also becomes thinner without being noticed. There is no price increase sign. There is no scene of panic buying. Only the familiar level of protection is slowly reduced to the point that no one reacts. The value of bleach does not lie in normal days, but in abnormal days. When clean water becomes uncertain, the difference between still having a bottle of bleach available and having nothing left in hand is no longer a matter of convenience, but the ability to control the situation. There is no crisis on the shelf today. But sometimes the thing that disappears first is not the product, but the feeling that you were prepared enough. 5. Lysol Disinfectant Spray. 19-ounce disinfectant spray has never been a luxury item, but very recent history has shown how quickly it can disappear from shelves whenever an outbreak returns. In the early months of 2020, many supermarkets opened in the morning with shelves still full, and only a few hours later, they were completely empty. Not because people wanted to hoard excessively, but because everyone understood that there are things that cannot wait until tomorrow to buy. From that moment on, disinfectant spray was no longer just an ordinary cleaning supply, but became part of the feeling of control during periods when everything around was difficult to predict. For many years, large containers, such as the 19-ounce size, were simply the most reasonable choice. Buy once, use long enough, and the cost per spray was clearly lower than smaller sizes. However, as large containers are gradually removed from the shelves and buyers are pushed towards smaller versions with higher prices per ounce, what changes is not the frequency of use, but the way costs quietly increase without almost creating the feeling of a price hike. There is no official announcement, no more scenes of panic buying like before. Only a very slow narrowing of the familiar level of protection, slow enough that many people do not realize it until they look back at their shopping habits after a long period of time. What matters is not the spray bottle itself, but the psychological role it once held. Because during unstable periods, still having an item that helps disinfect the living space brings a very specific form of calm. Something money is difficult to measure yet easily eroded as cost-saving options gradually disappear. And when the things that once helped people feel they still had control of the situation begin to become smaller, more expensive, and harder to keep available at home, what is truly lost is not only a familiar product, but the quiet space of calm that once existed before each disruption. You do not become poorer because you buy more. You become poorer because you are forced to buy again sooner. 4. Arm & Hammer Baking Soda 13-pound bag. In everyday life, there are things that never stand at the center of attention, yet quietly exist as part of the foundation of daily living that people only notice when they are no longer within reach. And baking soda belongs to that quiet group of items. It does not represent modern convenience or immediate comfort, but carries a more enduring kind of value, appearing in small tasks, simple needs, and unexpected situations that a household must handle on its own before thinking about seeking more complex solutions. Because of this foundational nature, large capacity bags once played the role of a form of passive reserve, not intended for emergency stockpiling, but simply helping maintain the continuity of many very ordinary activities over a long period of time. As this option is gradually narrowed and replaced by smaller sizes with significantly higher cost per unit, the change is not that a product becomes more expensive, but that the ability to maintain simple solutions in daily life begins to depend more on a continuous rhythm of purchasing. What makes baking soda different is not a specific use, but the ability to stand between many different needs without requiring specialization, allowing people to solve small problems through methods that are less costly and less dependent. When large capacities disappear from store shelves, what is truly reduced is the range of flexibility a household can keep in hand, not merely the amount of money paid for the same familiar material. In a context where the cost of living changes through slow but continuous movements, foundational items like these often play the role of invisible stability, because they reduce the need to turn to more expensive alternatives whenever a small problem arises. And when that invisible stability gradually thins in a way that is very difficult to notice, what is affected is not only spending habits, but the sense of initiative that once existed in the simplest tasks of everyday life. In the end, the true value of baking soda does not lie in what it is used for at a specific moment, but in the way it allows many different moments to continue without requiring too much thought. like a quiet foundation of self-reliance that people usually only recognize when it begins to slip out of reach. 3. Cascade Dishwasher Tablets 115 Count Box. In many modern kitchens, the dishwasher operates more like a quiet habit than a noticeable appliance. The evening ends, dishes are placed on the rack, the door closes, a small tablet is set into its familiar position, and everything continues almost without thought. Because of that steady repetition, the cost attached to this action often disappears from awareness, since people rarely recalculate things that have already become normal in everyday life. For many years, large capacity boxes, such as the 115 count size, once provided a form of stability that was difficult to notice. Each wash consumed only a very small portion of cost, small enough not to create the feeling of spending money. As this option is gradually reduced on store shelves and replaced by smaller boxes with higher prices per tablet, the change is not that households wash dishes more often, but that total costs rise over time while leaving almost no clear sign in each individual purchase. Imagine a familiar kitchen after dinner. The sound of water stopping, the kitchen lights softening, and the dishwasher beginning its familiar cycle. Nothing in that moment suggests that the cost of convenience is shifting, because everything still looks exactly as it did in previous years. Yet the small changes, repeated hundreds of times each year, quietly create a difference far greater than immediate perception. And only when looking back over a long enough period do people realize that familiar convenience has become more expensive in a way that is difficult to name. What is noteworthy is not the dishwasher tablet itself, but the way costs attached to modern comfort often rise slowly enough to avoid attention, slow enough not to trigger a reaction, yet long enough to alter the sense of stability in a household budget. As large capacity options gradually disappear, what is affected is not only the price of a specific product, but the level of ease people once had in maintaining conveniences that seemed entirely ordinary in daily life. And in the end, what surprises people is not that costs have increased, but the moment they realize the change has been happening for a long time. Only no one noticed until they had already grown used to the new price. 2. Maxwell House Coffee Large Jar 170 ounce. For many decades, the morning of millions of American households began in the same simple way. The kitchen light turned on, water was heated, and the smell of coffee slowly spread through the quiet space before the new day truly began. It was not just a drink, but a familiar rhythm of living so ingrained that people almost never thought about it. Much like the way humans rarely question things that have been part of everyday life for long enough. Large capacity coffee jars once existed as a form of quiet stability within that habit. They did not make the coffee taste better, nor did they make the morning more special, but they kept the cost of a daily repeating routine small enough not to become a burden. As large sizes gradually disappear from the shelves and are replaced by smaller options with significantly higher prices per ounce, the change is not that people drink more coffee, but that the total cost of familiarity rises in a way that is very difficult to notice in each individual purchase. Think of a quiet kitchen at dawn, where the familiar cup still sits in its usual place and everything seems unchanged. There is no sign that anything is shifting, because the habit continues exactly as before. Yet the small changes stretched across years are enough to alter the sense of stability people once had with the simplest parts of life. Coffee is not the largest expense in a household, but it is one of the few things repeated almost every day. And when a habit repeats often enough, any quiet price increase can accumulate into a difference far more visible than the initial feeling suggests. In the end, what people realize is not that the price of coffee has risen, but the moment a familiar morning suddenly becomes more expensive in a way that is difficult to explain. even though everything in the kitchen still looks exactly the same as before. Do you have anything you buy every day that suddenly feels more expensive without knowing why? 1. Hunt's tomato paste 28-ounce can. Not every change in the retail system appears through large signals or clear announcements. Sometimes they begin with very small details deep inside the kitchens of people who still cook every day. A large can of tomato paste was once a familiar choice for families who truly cook, where ingredients are used for an entire pot of sauce, a meal for many people, or recipes passed down through generations. A larger size is not simply more. It represents a way of shopping oriented toward long-term cooking, where costs are distributed across each meal rather than each purchase. As large cans gradually disappear from the shelves and are replaced by smaller sizes with a higher total price when added together. The change is not that people cook less, but that the cost of real cooking is pushed upward in a way that is very difficult to notice in each product choice. Imagine a weekend afternoon when the kitchen warms with the smell of tomato sauce slowly simmering on the stove, and everything unfolds according to the familiar rhythm of the family. Nothing in that moment suggests that the way ingredients are purchased has changed, because the meal is still cooked as before. Yet small details such as package size quietly determine the total cost of meals repeated across many years. Tomato paste is not an expensive product, but it is one of the most basic ingredients of cooking at home. And when even foundational ingredients shift in a direction that increases overall cost, it reflects a movement far larger than a single can on a store shelf. This is not only the story of a disappearing product, but a clear example of how the system adjusts purchasing behavior without needing to say it out loud. You do not cook less. You only gradually become used to paying more for the same meal as before. This video does not tell you that you must stockpile. It does not tell you that you must buy from Walmart. It only says one thing. The modern conveniences many people still use are being made more expensive in a quiet way. If you have already stopped using these things, you are ahead. If you still use them, knowing early will help you avoid being caught off guard. Preparation is not fear. Preparation is being less passive than others.